Hi, it's Josh Marshall from TPMtv. It's Thursday, November 13th, 2008. Now, before we get to anything else, we have to tell you that today is the 8th anniversary of TalkingPointsMemo.com. Yeah, we started on November 13th, 2000, just about the time that the Florida recount was really getting underway. So 8 years for Talking Points Memo. Now we're going to give you a quick update on the 3 remaining Senate races that are still in doubt from the November election. Since Barack Obama had such a clear win at the top of the ticket, a lot of Democrats have been not that unhappy about the fact that their expectations on the Senate side didn't quite live up to at least their highest expectations. They didn't get to that magic 60, which is what they need to block a filibuster in the Senate. But there are 3 races that still haven't been decided yet, and at least a couple of those, the Democrats seem to be making a lot of progress, maybe even comebacks, in races that a lot of us thought they had lost. First, let's look at Minnesota and Alaska. Minnesota, you remember, is the race between Al Franken and the dark-hearted Norm Coleman, the incumbent Republican senator. Now, this one was always really close, but the day after Election Day, it looked like Coleman had pulled it out in the end, not by much, by a little less than 1,000 votes, but that's usually more than you can make up in a recount. However, since then, over the course of the last week and a half, something has happened. They've been going back, verifying votes, retabulating, and now the deficit is just about to 200 votes. Now, this is going to definitely go to a recount, and 200 votes, that about 200 vote margin, is the kind of margin that a recount can often erase. Now, there's some circumstantial, anecdotal evidence that the votes that are out there, the ones that might change in a recount, particularly what are so-called undervotes, that those might favor Al Franken. But basically, this one is too close to call, and it's really going to come down to the recount. This thing is not going to get settled into December. So Minnesota, a definite possibility, but anyone's guess. Next up to Alaska, and here it's looking even more promising. Now, one of the big surprises on election night is that you've got this guy, Senator Ted Stevens, been in the Senate for about 190 years, and he had just been convicted of multiple felony convictions for not technically bribery, but charges related to what in colloquial terms we would call bribery, and yet you see him coming from behind in the polls to seemingly win re-election up in the state of Alaska. But again, you had tens of thousands of absentee and question ballots out there, and yesterday they started really plowing through those, and Stevens' margin went from just about 3,000 votes in his favor to almost 1,000 votes in the favor of Democrat Mark Begich. So Begich, who's the mayor of Anchorage, Alaska, he's not just in the hunt, he's actually ahead by almost 1,000 votes now. Now, there's still a lot of ballots still left to count. I believe it's in the tens of thousands. But the thing is, the trend has been all in Begich's direction. Now, we don't know if the remaining ballots may be, for some reason or another, favoring Stevens, but at the moment, it's not looking that great for Ted Stevens. Again, trend is all going to Begich. He's almost 1,000 votes ahead right now. Still more to go. Probably will go to a recount, although if Begich really is able to extend that lead, may not even happen. So Alaska is looking very promising for the Democrats. Now, last we've got Georgia. Now, Saxby Chambliss, who's the incumbent Republican in Georgia, won pretty handily on election night down in Georgia, but they've got a special election law down in Georgia, and you've got to get over 50%, and he didn't do that. So because he didn't get to 50%, Chambliss has to run again in a runoff on December 2nd against Jim Martin, the Democrat. Now, this does not look very promising. Chambliss won by a decent margin on Election Day, and you have to figure that the advantages that Martin had on Election Day, particularly that you had Obama at the top of the ticket, you had a really strong African-American turnout, and just a high turnout election in general that you have in a presidential race, he's not going to have those advantages. So this is a serious uphill climb, but again, still possible. And if Martin were able to pull this out, that would be potentially the 60th seat the Democrats had in the Senate. So just to wrap up, as of today, 58 seats in the Senate is starting to look likely, 59 seats, a definite possibility, and 60 seats, not likely at all, but still an outside chance. I'm Josh Marshall from TPM Media, and we'll talk to you next week.